Hello bookish people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan. In today's video we are doing a massive book haul. These are all the books that I bought so far in 2024 because I have not filmed one book haul this entire year, but that doesn't mean I haven't been buying books. Now I have 60 books here, which sounds like a lot, but honestly I feel like I've been kind of disciplined this year in the books I've been buying, which makes me happy. So we're gonna go through everything. I'm gonna do this pretty rapid fire because if I was to spend a minute on every book we would be here for an hour or over an hour. So let's go through the first batch of books. The first books I have surrounding me right now are the books that I thrifted because I do thrift a lot of my books. I would say over 50% of this haul is thrifted. And then I will go get the books that I bought retail. That's Target, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Aardvark, Book of the Month, all of that fun jazz. So let's go through my thrifted books first and let's get into the video because it's gonna be a long one. Starting with the first pile, which is my Thrifted Romance pile. Let's get into it. The first one I have is Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. This is the sequel to Secretly Yours, which I actually unhauled and I regret unhauling it because I would have them both side by side on my shelves now, and that is not the case. I didn't really love the first one, so I'm skeptical going into this one, but because I thrifted it, I own it. Like, a lot of these thrifted books are books that I wouldn't necessarily buy at Barnes & Noble, but because most of these books I bought from anywhere from 25 cents to $4, I'm a lot more willing to put them on my shelves in my collection. The next book I have is My Oxford Year by Julia Whelan. I love Julia Whelan. She is a audiobook narrator, and she actually came out with her own book that I listened to called, oh my god, I totally forgot what it was called. Was it called Thank You for Listening? It was called something. Really enjoyed it, and this was the first book that she ever wrote and came out with. Even though I do own the physical books, I thrifted it. I will most likely listen to this via audio because again, I just love her voice. She is an excellent audiobook narrator. Not sure what it's about, but it is a romance. Next we have a book that I definitely only bought because I thrifted it. Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. I am not a Christina Lauren fan. I read a bunch of their books last year and honestly I don't think I rated any of them 5 stars. There's always something about them I didn't connect with, but this author duo is so popular. So when I found this kind of recent release by her, I was like, you know, I'll give her another chance. I keep saying her, but they're an author duo. Don't know what it's about. The cover is cute. We're giving it a chance, and although I thrifted the physical copy, most likely I'll be listening to this via audio. That's the reason why I don't thrift too many romances, because romance is something I like to listen to audiobooks. I don't really like to physically read them. I try to not put books on my shelves. I'm just gonna listen to the audiobook for, but you know, some slip through the cracks and I buy them. Next book we have is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This book is actually really funny because I read this book in January and I have absolutely zero memory of this book. When I thrifted this book, I had totally forgot that I had read it. And the only reason I know that I read it is because I went to go add it on my Goodreads and it said I read it and I rated it 4 stars and I was like, wait, what? Is that real? And so I looked at my Goodreads history. Yeah, no, I updated the percentage. Like, I was keeping track of my progress reading it. So then I went to Libby and I was like, did I check out the audiobook? Yep. And then when you click on it, it can tell you like how long you listened to it. Cause I was thinking, okay, maybe I didn't finish it or something. And I accidentally marked it as read on like Goodreads. No, I listened to the full audiobook. It shows the full time that I listened to it. So interesting. Listened to an entire audiobook. I had no memory of it. But yeah, that's my little story with The 7-Year Slip. So yeah, I have it on my shelves because I thrifted it. So there we go. Next book I picked up The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. I love Abby Jimenez. I love all of her books. Her last 3 releases, 5 star, 5 star, 5 star, like amazing, a hat trick. She got 5 stars. No, she got she got 3 5 stars in a row. You know, I don't know how she does it, but apparently she is quickly becoming one of my favorite romance authors, and I am really excited to read this one. The only reason I haven't listened to the audiobook yet is because once I read the back of it, like I just saw her name, put it in my cart, bought it. And then I got home and kind of read the back of it, and I think this has to do with infertility, which sounds like a really sad, depressing subject that I'm not quite sure I want to read about. But it's Abby Jimenez. I have to have trust in her because she's an amazing author and I love all her stories. And next book I got is The Partner Plot by Christina Forrest. I've seen her books on Goodreads and she's always an author I've been wanting to check out because she has like the cutest covers, cute premises to her books. I don't know what this is about. It's about a Vegas wedding, but I don't know who the love interests are. Is it enemies to lovers? Oh, here we go. All I had to do is read the back. 2 former high school sweethearts get a second chance in this marriage of convenience romance. Okay, so Vegas wedding, second chance romance. I don't love second chance romance, but you know, I'm always willing to give things a try. I was gonna say a second chance, a try. But historically, Second Chance has not done the best for me. But you know, it was such a cute cover, had Vegas in it, so I was like, you know, I want to read it. I need to try it out. So I got that. And the last romance book that I thrifted this year is By the Book by Jasmine Guillory. She's another hit or miss author for me. I've read a lot of her books. I've never found a 5-star by her, but in general, I have found books by her that I really like. Usually her books take me a minute to get into it, and then once I get into it, I'm hooked and I'm really rooting for the couple. And this book spoke to me because I love romance books that have to do with the book industry, the publishing industry. That's what this is about. The only thing I don't love about this book is, like, look at the other romance books and look at this romance book. Like, why is it so much taller? You know, like, why is that necessary? Like, why is it such a tall paperback? Unnecessary, don't love that, but excited to read the book itself. The next stack of books I have here are hardcover books that I thrifted, mainly mystery thrillers, but some other genres throw in here as well. The first one I have is one of my most recent thrift finds, and that is Blood Sugar by Sasha Rothschild. I first saw this book featured on Katie Colson's channel, but I don't remember if she liked it or not, but I think it has to do with a female serial killer, and you know, that spoke to me, and I was like, okay, I will read it. Anything that has to do with feminine rage, female rage, I love to read about it. I love that premise for a mystery thriller. They're just so fun. And also, I've been kind of scaling back on the amount of mystery thrillers I thrift because, similar to romance, I like to listen to them via audiobook. So if I'm going to thrift one, it's one that I think I'm going to want to read physically. If I find one out in the wild and I know I want to listen to the audiobook, I won't purchase it. Next book I have, Bad Summer by Emma Rosenblum. I actually already read this book. I read this book pretty quickly after I got it. It's a pretty short book. This book felt like Ellen Hildebrand meets mystery thriller genre because it is multi-POV. Although, like, this wasn't very mystery thriller-esque, right? I think it's pitched as a mystery thriller, but it's not very twisty or turny. It's more like Ellen Hildebrand, right? Multi-POV drama, but some mystery thriller things happen towards the end. Overall, I really enjoyed it, and I forgot what I rated it, but I had a really great time reading it. The next two books I have are actually nonfiction books, the only nonfiction books I thrifted. So the first one I have is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I got this because this is like such a popular nonfiction book of our time, right? Like, everybody has read this book. I have not. I have been waiting for the day to come across it in a thrift store, and this is kind of just like, what, like a self-help type of book? I don't really know, but it's very popular and I want to read it. I want to be in on the hype. And then the other one I got is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Now, I actually already own this book, but I own a paperback version of it, and I just thought it would look nicer on my nonfiction shelf if I had a hardcover version of it. I haven't read it yet. I think on my paperback version I read the first chapter of the book, and it's basically about sleep and why it's so important for us, and you know, how it's so important for our health and the health things that can go wrong if you don't get a proper night of sleep. I'm always intrigued by anything that has to do with like psychology or neuroscience. Any of that stuff I find really interesting, so that is why I picked this book up, and I will slowly read it throughout the year. Next book I have is The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. This is the sequel to The Maid, and I absolutely love The Maid, rated it 5 stars. I listened to that one via audio, and I loved listening to it via audio. This one I read physically, so I've experienced this like story kind of both ways, and honestly both experiences were very enjoyable. This one I rated 4 stars. Didn't love it as much as The Maid, but still had a really great time, and I cannot wait to see what Molly is up to in Nita Prose's next release. The next book I picked up is Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee, and this book I picked up because it is a heist story. I don't know exactly what it is about. A book like this, I'll read the synopsis in the thrift store, I'll be intrigued by it, I'll get it, then it sits on my shelves, and I know I'm intrigued by it, but I don't necessarily remember the premise. But to be honest, when I'm watching book hauls, I don't really care what the synopsis to a book is, right? I just want the booktuber to kind of talk about why they bought the book, and then also give me like a few hints, like give me a few tropes or aspects of the story to intrigue me, right? Yeah, we have this one. Heist book, mystery thriller. Excited about it. Next book we have is The Measure by Nikki Erlich. This is a sci-fi book that as soon as this book came out, it was on my radar, and I found it at a thrift store, which was shocking to me because I don't typically find like sci-fi fantasy in the thrift store. Well, actually, I take that back because I have a huge group of fantasy books that I found at the thrift store this year, but typically this isn't a book I would expect to come across in a thrift store, just based on like the demographic of my area and the books I typically find. So this is a sci-fi book, and it's about this like like world where you get a box that tells you like the year you're gonna die or like the age you're gonna die or something, so you kind of live your life knowing that, or that's like kind of hanging over your head. And I always thought that was really interesting because it really gives me similar vibes to this book called The Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin, which is a book I read like a couple years ago that I really enjoyed. It kind of just gave me similar vibes to it, which is why I was intrigued by it. This one I'm going to listen to via audio, but I bought the physical copy of it because I don't know why, it's kind of like a 5-star prediction in my head, so that's why I bought a physical copy of it. The next book I picked up is American Mermaid by Julia Lungbean, and this is, I don't think it's a mystery thriller, I think this is more of a contemporary fiction novel, but in this book you're following our main character who wrote a book that's now being turned into a movie, and she has a very like badass female main character, and they want to change, the studio's like pressuring her to change her badass female main character into like this sexualized version of this character, you know, giving into like skimpy outfits and like kind of like a superhero type of vibe versus the kind of badass androgynous vibe that this character had. So it's about her kind of dealing with that. I don't remember what happens after that, but that's the part of the synopsis that kind of called out to me and the part that made me really intrigued to read the book. The next book I picked up is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This is a mystery thriller. When it came out, everybody was talking about it, and I have yet to read a Lisa Jewell book, but I have heard so many great things about them. This one in particular I wanted to read physically, so I was so excited when I found it in the thrift store. I don't really know what it's about. I think it has to do with a crime, and I think it has to do with a podcast and someone returning to an old neighborhood, which I feel like is a very general premise for a lot of mystery thrillers, but for some reason this one has a lot of praise and a lot of hype around it. And the last book I have here is First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. This book I actually already listened to the audiobook right when it came out in January. I really liked it. If you look at my Goodreads, I rated it 5 stars, but I don't remember, or I rated it 4 stars. I don't really know, between a 4 or a 5. But I don't really remember entirely what this book was about to like pitch it to you now. I would like to do a reread of it, and so I got a physical copy of it, and yeah, I remember really enjoying it. So although I can't tell you what it's about, just know that I really enjoyed my time reading it. The next stack of books I have are kind of the random books before we get into like the fantasy stuff. So the first one we have is Demon Slayer. We have Demon Slayer. This is the first book in the manga series, and I don't really know what it's about, but I thrifted it for 25 cents. So, you know, I was pretty excited to find it. I'm always looking for a new manga series to start, so here we go, Demon Slayer. Next book we have is Lovely War by Julie Berry. This is a historical fiction / fantasy novel. I think it has to do with World War II. So it has to do with the 2 world wars and the gods, like mythology, like Greek mythology. So I just thought that was a very interesting blend of genres. I've heard really great things about this book, so I'm very excited to read it. Next book we have is The Agathas by Kathleen Glasgow and Liz Lawson. So this book is a YA mystery series, kind of loosely, not based on Agatha Christie stories, but you can, obviously there's like some Agatha Christie inspiration for the characters in this book. Like I think they have an Agatha Christie club or something. I don't really know, but I do know when I saw this book in Barnes & Noble, I really was intrigued and I wanted to buy it, but I had a restraint and I did it. But then I found it at a thrift store, so that is great. So something I wanted to buy retail, ended up thrifting. I love YA mysteries, they're fun times, and this is such a cute pink cover, so yeah, we have this book. The next 2 books I got are part of a series, and that is It's Not Summer Without You and We'll Always Have Summer. So I had read this series last year, maybe a little longer than that, and I originally thrifted this series, but I had the OG covers, but I love the new covers, and I thrifted the last 2 books in this trilogy in the new covers. So now I'm just waiting to come across the first book in this series, then I'll have a complete little set here. So although I already read these books, I love the new covers. I thought they would look really cute on my shelves, especially next to my other Jenny Han books. We have these, and I'm still in the search for the first one. The next book I have is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is a YA mystery. No, it's not a YA mystery. This is a YA fantasy series that I've heard really great things about. I thrifted this and I can't wait to read it because I am a fan of YA fantasy. I love YA fantasy. Didn't know what this was about when I purchased it. I still don't know what it's about, and I don't care because YA fantasy has a lot of hype. That means when I find it in a thrift store, I'm gonna buy it. Now we're moving on to my next stack of books. These are fantasy books that I thrifted. So let's start with the first 2. So we have The Hobbit and we have The Lord of the Rings. So I read The Hobbit. I thrifted this book first. I read it. I actually really enjoyed it, and it was such a fun time. It was something that I just really didn't expect to ever read, or I just came across it at a thrift store and I kind of just like while I was in the store read like the first like 5 pages of it, or like less than 5 pages, maybe first 2 pages, I don't really know, but I was like, wow, I actually really like this writing style. So then I went home, I read the whole book, really enjoyed it, and ever since then I have been dying to come across the rest of the Lord of the Rings series. And then I came across a whole bind up of the Lord of the Rings series. So this is all the Lord of the Rings books, it's a whole trilogy and one shebang, and yeah, I'm really excited to read this one. So for being such a popular series, you would think you come across these books all the time, but that is not the case, because there was a couple months in between finding this book and finding this book. So I just want to put that out there. If you want to thrift Lord of the Rings, like, you think it could be an easy task, but it's not. All right, the next book I picked up is The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. This one I got for 25 cents, which makes me so happy. This is a fantasy series that I have been wanting to read. I'm intrigued by a lot of adult fantasy series, but the thing is, I typically thrift a lot of books, right? Like, I always give the books that I own priority over books that I want to read. And because I never really come across adult fantasy in the thrift store, I always give priority to mystery thrillers, romance, and whatever else that I thrift. So I was very excited to find this one so I can finally give priority to this book. So yeah, we have The Shadow of What Was Lost. Don't know what it's about, but I've actually seen kind of a resurgence of this book. I think it's an older book, but I've seen a resurgence in people reading it recently and really loving it. So hopefully I get on that bandwagon. And it is a thick, chunky book, but I'm weirdly not intimidated by it because I've seen so many good reviews of this book that the size does not intimidate me because of all the wonderful reviews. So very excited to read this one whenever I get around to it. And the last book I have in this stack is a Harry Potter book. This is the 5th Harry Potter book and I already own it, but like, oh, look at this cover that I thrifted. It doesn't even say the Order of Phoenix on it. It's all artwork. Like, what is this from? How do I buy more of them? Like, it's not a reversible dust jacket or whatever, because I was like, maybe it's reversible. I don't know. But I found this and I'm just like obsessed with how it looks. Like, what cover is this? If you know anything about this cover, let me know down below because I would love more of these. I have a whole Harry Potter shelf, and honestly, fun fact, my whole Harry Potter collection is thrifted, which is a fact that I love. Speaking of Harry Potter books that I thrifted, I have The Prisoner of Azkaban. This is the UK edition that I thrifted. Back when I was originally reading Harry Potter for the first time, the second book, Chamber of Secrets, I stumbled across the UK version. So I actually ended up reading that my first time around, and I've been dying to collect the whole series in the UK covers. And then I also came across this, which is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This is actually a hardcover version of this book, but it's not in perfect condition. Like, it's, you know, it has like this writing on top, whatever, but I don't care. It's the UK edition and I'm trying to thrift them all. All right, the next stack of books are books that I want to read the series, but I didn't thrift the first books. I thrifted the other books in the series. So there we go. The first one we have is the 2 books from the Rising Trilogy. So I have Golden Sun and Morning Star. Now this was very exciting because I actually do own the first Red Rising book. It's right down here. And I bought it last year. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, but I really do want to read it. And then I went to a thrift store and I found, at the same time, the next book I have is Muse and Nightmares by Lonnie Taylor. I've always wanted to read this duology. I forgot what the first one is called. Strange the Dreamer, right? Strange the Dreamer. I've always wanted to read that. Came across the second one in the thrift store, so I bought it hoping that I'll come across the first book in this series at a thrift store sometime soon. Okay, the next book I have is Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. This is another series that I have been seeing having a resurgence, like as in it's older, but I see booktubers I watch have kind of recently reading it, one being Olivia Reads a Latte, and this one is the 3rd book in a trilogy. So, you know, I bought it because it's very rare for me to come across these types of books when I'm out thrifting. So, you know, I want to read the series. I got the 3rd one. If I read the first one and love it, great. All I have to do is find the second one or buy it. You know what I mean? Wherever you could save money, you save money, okay? I think I spent like $2 on this. And similar to buying a last book in a series, I have Ruin by John Gwynne. This is another series I really want to read, the first one being Malice. Heard really great things about this, and I came across the last book in the series at a thrift store, so I bought it because you buy it when you see it. So we have this one, haven't read the back, don't know what it's about, and don't care to know what it's about because no spoilers here. And in that same vein, I have A Dance of Dragons by George R.R. Martin. I thrifted a hardcover edition of it. I would really love to read the whole Game of Thrones series. I thrifted Game of Thrones last year, and then we also also have a Clash of Kings. I don't know if I've got it this year or if I've ever shown it in a haul, but in case I didn't, I also have this one. So this is everything I own of Game of Thrones so far. So obviously I'm missing some pieces, but whenever I find them in the thrift store and they aren't mass market paperbacks, I pick them up. Okay, now we're moving on to the books that I bought retail, starting with my paperback slash small hardcover pile. The first book on this stack is one of my absolute favorite books that I read this year, and that is Cant Spell, Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. This book is a sapphic cozy fantasy with some romance in there, and honestly I don't want to tell you anything about it. Just go into this blind and listen to ambiance music, which is specifically the ambiance music I listened to for this was like Morning at Hogwarts, like Hogwarts Legacy ambiance music. That plus this book is kind of everything, and I highly recommend. So absolutely utterly obsessed. 5 stars. Can't wait for the next one to come out in October. Just obsessed with these characters, and I need to live in this village, and that's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. The next book I picked up is Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and this was one I was so excited to read. I still have yet to read it. I know I'm also ashamed of myself for not having read this book yet, but you know, it is what it is, and hopefully I read it soon. Hopefully, as if I'm not in charge of my own destiny and my own reading journey. The next book I have is You May Now Kill the Bride by Kate Weston. I don't know, I haven't really heard anybody talk about this book, but I read the synopsis at Target during like a buy to get one 50% off sale or buy two get one free sale or something like that, and you know, I was intrigued and I was like, I'll read this, okay? So hopefully this doesn't become the book that I bought impulsively that just sits on my shelf forever. Hopefully this is a book that I can accomplish soon. The next book we picked up is Finley Donovan Rolls the Dice. This is the 4th book in the Finley Donovan series. Absolutely love it. I'm honestly waiting to read this one because I really want to reread the 3rd one in the series, and so once I reread that, I'll read this. But honestly, I remember a lot from the 3rd one, so I don't really need to reread it, but it's just fun to do so. So don't know what this is about, but I love Finley Donovan series, and I've rated most of them either 4 or 5 stars. The next book I have is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This purchase was entirely inspired by Cant Spell, Treason Without Tea because I love that book so much, and I'm dying for another great cozy fantasy with some romance in here, and that is what this is. Plus it's blurbed by Rebecca Thorne, so I'm like, okay, Rebecca Thorne, you have my complete trust and faith in you now, so whatever you blurb, I will read, okay? And then the next 2 books that I have are a series, so I have Powerless and I have Reckless, both by Lauren Roberts. Would love to read these. I think they were on my August TBR, so I should currently be reading them, but I'm not. Actually, I would just love to do maybe a reading vlog where I binged both of these in, like, you know, a vlog. I don't know how many days it will take me, but a vlog. I just read these back to back. That could be a fun time. I feel like this is the YA fantasy series that's kind of taking over right now, and I like to be in the know. Next pile we're getting into is my book subscriptions. So the first 4 books I have are from Aardvark Book Club, so let's get into it. I had Aardvark Book Club, then I canceled it, and now I am back on their subscription service because honestly, I was comparing them in Book of the Month, and I have been more intrigued by Aardvark's picks than Book of the Month picks, so I decided to reactivate my membership. Currently, I am a member of both. The first book I have is I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. And this is exactly what it sounds like it is about. I think it is about a teenage slasher. I was intrigued, 1, by the cover. It has pink on it. 2, it's a horror book. And 3, the title. Didn't read the synopsis, intrigued by all these different aspects. And I bought the book. Can't wait to read it. The next book I have is Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. And this is a horror book. I do know what the synopsis is because it's a very recent purchase. It's about this guy who wrote a book turned movie, and the studio wants to kill off the gay character, and he doesn't want to do that. So it's about that. And it says like his demons come to life and are chasing him down in Hollywood. I don't know, sounds fun. You can make a killing in Hollywood. That's the tagline. Sounds like a good time. And honestly, if you're a horror girl, Aardvark is the place to go. I'm not claiming for me to be a horror girl. I haven't read enough to claim to be a horror girly. But if you are, I feel like Aardvark is the spot because that's where all of my horror books are coming from right now. The next book I got from Aardvark, also a horror. We have The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This is another female serial killer book. So in this haul, I have 2 female serial killer books, which we love. So we have this, and I don't know what it's about other than female serial killer. And the last book I got from Aardvark is The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. This is a huge chunky standalone fantasy. At least I think it's a standalone fantasy. This has to do with the Knights of Camelot. So you're following our main character who goes to Camelot to talk to Arthur at the round table. When he arrives, Arthur is died and a lot of the knights have died as well. So you kind of just have like the remaining knights, the oddballs, the misfits, and then this guy bands together with all these like misfit knights and they go to try to rebuild Camelot. And this book I was really debating on, especially when I saw the length of the pages, but it was the Goodreads reviews that really won me over and I was like, I need to read this book. It just had really good reviews and I'm excited to read it. So we have The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. And now we have my 4 book of the month picks that I bought so far this year. And when I say I haven't been as intrigued by book of the month versus Aardvark, I mean that in the sense of, again, I'm really not trying to put books on my shelves that I'm not going to read physically, right? Like back in the day when I was on my book of the month kick, I was getting books every month. I was getting add-ons, but a lot of them I was just reading via audiobook. And it's like, why was I doing that? If I'm gonna read something via audiobook, read it via audiobook, and if you rate it 5 stars and want it on your shelves, go out and buy it. But I'm unlearning, right? So all the books that I'm buying are books that I think I'm gonna be reading physically, especially the books I buy retail are only books I'm gonna be reading physically, which is why the amount of books I've gotten from book of the month have drastically gone down. I have 5 Broken Blades by May Corland, which I have talked about a lot on my channel because I feel like it is in all my TBR videos. It is a book with a very intriguing premise plot to it. So we have our 5 assassins. They're tasked with killing the king, but so they're trying to work together, but they're also very on edge and kind of eyeing each other because they know that they're probably going to all want to be in place of the king, right, once they kill them. So they're all like, I need to trust you to accomplish this task, but I don't trust you because I want to be at the top. So there we go. Sounds like a fun time, and I know the sequel is coming out in the next couple months, so I would like to read this close to the sequel so I don't forget anything. The next book I picked up is A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. I've never read anything by this author. Isn't he like kind of controversial or something? I don't really know. It says no murder is by the book. So it says a newlywed librarian begins to suspect the man she married is a murderer in this spectacularly twisty and deviously clever novel by Peter Swanson. So I don't know, something intrigued me about it, and this is the book I bought, and when I was like, no, we're not going down this path with book of the month again. If you're gonna listen to it via audio, don't pick it up at all. So this was me coming up with that rule. I bought this book and I was like, why did I do that? But I did it. So there we go. I own it. I'll read it. Next book I have is Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austin. She is the author of this book right here that I absolutely love. Everyone in this room will someday be dead. Loved this book. I don't know what I rated. I believe 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I was very excited for her latest release, and even more excited when it was a book of the month pick. This I got in January, which is right when I canceled my subscription. So this was my last book before I canceled. And I have yet to read it yet, but I will be, and I'm most likely listening to the audiobook as well. And the last book I got from book of the month is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which is kind of an exception to my rule of buying a physical book when I know I'll listen to the audio, because I knew I was going to do that when I got this book, but I have faith in Abby Jimenez that it's going to be a 5-star read because she just writes the most amazing romances, and you know, I took a risk. I bought it. Then I listened to the audiobook, and guess what? It was 5 stars. Absolutely loved it, enjoyed it, and so happy that I got the physical book from Book of the Month. And specifically, I got this book because my other ones, Part of This World or Part of Your World and Yours Truly, they are from Book of the Month. So I wanted all my copies to match like so. So yeah, very excited to own this one. I was gonna say to read it, but I already read it and I loved it and I rated it 5 stars. So actually you should be excited to read it and you should go read it. And finally, we are on my last pile of books, and these are hardcover books that I bought retail, Target, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I think those are the 3. Okay, so let's go through them. The first book I have here, A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. Read it, loved it, obsessed with it, rated it 4 stars. It is a romantasy book following her main character Freya. She has an abusive husband that betrays her to the Jarl of their area. And the Jarl takes Freya because he wants to be king. She's a shield maiden, so he uses her to become the king. And it's just politics, it's romance, it's gods, and it's everything. Okay, I just love, it's based on Norse mythology, and I'm learning that I really love romantasy or fantasy that has to do with gods. I think it's just so much fun when they have the gods intertwined in the magic system. So absolutely love this book, rated it 4 stars, and just love the edges because they're very sparkly in the light. Next book I picked up is A Murder Road by by Simone St. James. This is a horror novel by Simone St. James, who I love. I've read 2 books by her. Both of the books have been 5-star reads, so I have been dying to read more by her. This is her latest release, and I feel like I'm really gonna love it just based on my past experience with this author. Don't know what this book is about, but I will tell you what Simone James does really well is dual timeline and paranormal. She does those 2 things very, very well, and hopefully I will love this and rate it at 5 stars. The next book I bought is The Ministry of Time by Kaylin Bradley, and this book I really bought off the hype of Haley fam. She rated it 5 stars and was raving about this book. Plus I thought the premise was intriguing, so this is like part spy thriller, part time travel book, and part romance. So all of those things combined into one. I love a good cross-genre book. So yeah, I think this will be a really fun read. I actually already read like the first 10 pages of this book, just like when I bought it and I was putting it away on my TBR cart. I flipped and I was like, let me just read like the first 2 pages, see what the vibe is, and then I ended up reading like 10 pages and I was like, oh wait, I actually have to work today. I don't have time to do this, so I've yet to pick it up since, but the first 10 pages I actually really loved. So there we go, The Ministry of Time. The next book I picked up is Every Time I Go on Vacation Someone Dies by Catherine Mack, and I need to read this by the end of August because like this is not a cover I want to see in fall, okay? This is a summer vibes, must be read in summer, but this is a cozy mystery series that has to do with a group of girls going on a trip. Actually, I think they're a group of authors, but they're also a group of girls. A group of girl authors going on a trip, and I think it takes place in Europe or something. I don't know, sounds like a good, fun, cozy time that I should read in the summer. The next book I picked up is The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. I just kind of love the cover of this book. I don't know why. Like the lanterns, the neon green, like the cover is really like pulled me in and intrigued me. Lucy Foley, let's talk about her. The guest list, I loved the vibes of that book. I rated it 3 stars though. You know, it's not like I was like loving the book. But the atmosphere of that book was kind of amazing and rated it 3 stars. I really enjoyed it. The Paris Apartment, wow, hated that book. Rated it 2 stars. This one we have high hopes for. I don't know what's giving me high hopes for this book, but for some reason I have high hopes for this book. I think it's the neon green. I think that's what's giving me high hopes because I'm just like somehow intrigued and obsessed with this cover. So I'm hoping it'll translate into a really good book. The next book I got, This Ravenous Fate by Haley Dennings. This is a sapphic vampire YA fantasy that takes place in the 1920s. I was trying to like hit all the notes. Like all the notes that intrigued me, I was like trying to make sure I listed them all. So this book specifically, what really called out to me in this book is I saw the author on Twitter and she was talking about her book. And I saw it in Barnes & Noble and then I bought it. It's like once the author is a real person to me, like I see them in like social media, I kind of want to support them. That's exactly what happened with this book here, Assistant to the Villain. I saw the author's TikTok talking about her book and how proud she was to have her book published. And I was like, let me go buy it. Let me go buy it. I gotta support her. So I guess that is like something for authors to know. If you're a real person on social media that I connect with, then I want to buy your book. The next book I purchased is How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. I just want to say a lot of these newer books that I purchased came from like buy 2 get 1 free deals, either from Target or Amazon had a buy 2 get 1 free book sale. So I just want to preface that for a lot of these books. Anyway, so How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. This is a historical mystery and it sounds exactly as it sounds. This is a person who I think she knows she's gonna die, or she gets a note saying she's gonna die or get murdered, I don't know, and she's trying to figure out who is going to murder her. Sounds interesting, sounds fun. I love a good historical mystery. Well, that's not entirely true. I haven't really read a lot of historical mysteries, but I think I would like them. You know what I mean? It's something that I'm always intrigued by them and I always want to read them, and they sound like they'll be a good time, but I haven't actually read them yet. So I think I will enjoy this book and this genre in general. The next book I picked up, A Temptest of Tea by Hassa Fazil. This book, I'm here in the book and I have been there for like 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know why. I cannot get into this book for the life of me. I just can't do it. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't get into it. You're following your main character who has a tea shop that caters to all people during the day but vampires at night. And then something's happening to her tea shop, and so she has to go to this like underground vampire den that has like all these like super rich vampires there. So she like creates a team of people to go with her. I don't know. It sounds like everything I should love and be intrigued by, but for some reason I just cannot get into it. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know what this book is doing wrong. I don't really even have any criticism of this book. I just am not intrigued. So that is the problem. It might be a DNF. It might be a DNF. The last book I have for this haul is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is a historical fantasy mystery book. Okay, it feels like it's going to be like one of those serialized mystery series, right? Where it's like a new mystery every book, but maybe there's going to be one overarching mystery. So it's definitely mystery, it's definitely fantasy, and it has a historical feel to it. Is it historical? I don't know. But it has that feel to it. I feel like most fantasy feels historical, even if it's not, just because of the world they're in. If it's not our world, because it doesn't have technology, it just feels like historical. Anyway, I read this. I rated it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was a slow start, but after the 50% mark, I was intrigued and I couldn't put it down. So I would recommend. You're following a detective duo as they're trying to solve a string of murders where trees erupt from people's bodies, which is a lot more gruesome than maybe it sounds. And the detective duo is a very fun, eccentric duo. You have this guy who could basically remember everything, and then you have the main part of the duo, the girl who actually solves the cases, the investigator, the detective, who solves cases while being blindfolded because she believes by eliminating one of your senses, your other senses work better, so she could solve mysteries better if she can't see. So that is what this book is about. Very fun. Rated it 4 stars. Those are all the books that I bought so far in the year of 2024. Do I need to buy any more books this year? No. Will I be purchasing more books this year? Most likely, because there are a lot of new releases on my radar. So really, I need to hunker down and focus on reading these ones before I buy any more new release books. So I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!
It was a long time from where we started, day to day. I had these feelings all inside and they wouldn't fade away. By the seas